We're ready to start. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Janal. I'm the National Sales Manager for Milking and Cooling at GEA Farm Technologies. It's my pleasure today to welcome Dr. Marcia Andres back to World Dairy Expo again this year to share the second half of her research in today's seminar, Milking with Robots, How Is It Done? Part 2. We at GEA Farm Technologies are proud to sponsor this session again this year. Dr. Marcia Andres is a professor in the Department of Animal Science at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, with an extension and research appointment. Her research interests include dairy management, welfare, and behavior. Some of her current research projects explore dairy technologies such as automated calf feeders, robotic milking systems, and cow sensors. Dr. Marcia received her PhD from the University of Minnesota, her master's from Iowa State University, and a veterinary medicine degree from the University Federal, Brazil. For those of you interested in continuing education credits, this seminar has been approved by the American Registry of Professional Animal Scientists and the American Association of Veterinary State Boards RACE program. Forms are available at the back of the room. As a common courtesy, please make sure to silence or change your cell phones to vibrate. I know it just takes a second, but if you wouldn't mind doing that, it'd be great. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Marcia.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the organizing committee for the invitation to speak today and talking with you guys a little bit more about robotic milking. And I also want to thank GEA Farm Technologies for, again, sponsoring my seminar. It's a pleasure to be here in the center of the dairy universe. It's a fun place to be, and I appreciate your time being here because there's lots to do and lots to see out there. So as he indicated, we do a lot of research on various precision dairy farming technologies. This particular project I'm doing in collaboration with an extension educator, Jim Sulfur. And we've been working with farms for the last couple of years. Last year I focused a little bit more on the housing aspects, on some of the management aspects of the project. And today I'm going to share a little bit more what's new, what's happening in the world of dairy, robotics, robotic milking. Just show you some pictures, some of these, of course, from the companies that are out there that you can talk to. And then follow up with some key factors that are important in making robotic systems successful. Before I keep going, I was wondering if anyone in this room already has robotic milking systems. Show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're together probably, so only 4 here in this room. This room has approximately maybe 150 people or so. So it's a small percentage of our population that has robotic systems. Of the 25 to 30,000 units worldwide, in the US we might have anywhere from maybe 500, maybe definitely less than 1,000, maybe 500. But it's growing. So how many in the room are interested in maybe or possibly considering installing robots? Oh, a lot more hands went up. So that's a picture of what's happening. And that's the reason we want to do some research with robotic milking, because there seems to be a lot of interest in investing in this new technology in the US, even though it's been much more popular in Europe and also in Canada. It's a growing technology for us in our market. And so I want to start as a background, and some of you might have seen some of this last year, but I want to kind of set the stage. Why did producers that we work with in our research decided to go for robotic milking? One major thing that we hear and over is improving my quality of life or my lifestyle. Examples that they give us is that now I have time to go to my kids' games in the evening. I couldn't before because I had to go milking, and at 4 in the morning, at 4 in the afternoon. I was tied to a schedule, and now my schedule is more flexible. And so that improved my quality of life. So that's one thing they mentioned. Labor management is another reason, and that is applicable to dairies that have primarily family labor and like cows, but do not want to have too many employees. So then they think that will help their, potentially could expand, have more cows, but not have to hire people. And for larger dairies, the potential to save labor, having less employees with maybe the same number of cows. So that labor management was also very important to them. Human health came up quite a few times, and that has to do with folks primarily that moved from a tie stall system to a robotic system. Back problems, knee problems. Now I can have a freestall with a robot, and I don't have to milk. Milk is also hard on your hands, your wrists. It's a hard job. I mean, it's a job that not everybody can do, and it's hard to find people that actually can do this type of job these days. Not too many people want to do it. So because of some of these factors. And a lot of them are interested in the latest technology. There's lots of technology that come with robotic systems. Not only the fact that you have automated arm that goes and milks your cows, but you get so much information about each animal at each milking. It's exciting, and those people that have robots like to look at technology. And also their kids, like a lot of these folks, they were in their 50s maybe, they still have many years to go, but their kids coming back to the farm, they don't want to come back to that old style, tie stall facility. They want something that's cool and exciting and new. A lot of the new kids, they grew up with cell phones and smartphones and computers, and that's what they want technology. They don't want the boring stuff, right? The new technology coming back, the new generation coming back. So that was important to them. And the consistency of milking cows the same way in and day out. A robot is a machine. Theoretically, it's going to be doing things the same way over and over and over. So you don't have the variability that you get with a person milking, or many people milking in some cases. So this is what we see in terms of number of robots per farm in our study. This is the distribution. You see that our average is close to 3 robots per farm, but this average is being brought up by some of these larger dairies that we have. Some of these larger dairies that we have that bring the average up. But when you look at the distribution, most of the farms have 2 robots, a few with 1. So 2 robots, 120 cows, that was the most common size. And again, coming back to using mostly just family labor, I can do all the work myself. I have flexibility of time. I'm going to be sharing some slides from one of our producers. And I did ask for permission. I don't know if he's in the room. This is one of our collaborators in our project. And he prepared the presentation last spring. And I asked Chad Kiefer is his name. He's with Keith Land Holstings in Minnesota. I asked Chad if I could use a few of his slides on my presentation today, because I like to tell stories, real stories of producers and what producers are doing. And I know you as producers like to hear from producers. So this is my way to bring to you some information from the producer himself, the data that he's been collected. He's also a nutritionist, so he pays close attention to what's happening on his farm. And I'm going to share a few of his slides to give you, again, the real-world data of this one farm that is being very successful. And when we talk about labor management, in their case, their labor costs, they came from a double 10 parallel parlor before the robots, moving on to 5 robotic systems, about 300 cows. And you can see here, based on his calculations, the cost of labor per 100 weight was actually reduced quite a bit when he moved to robots, because instead of 6 full-time employees, now he has 3 full-time employees, plus the family labor. So that in a larger operation, potentially robots can reduce the labor costs. I just want to make that point. And Bill Lazarus, who is an economist at U of M, developed a spreadsheet. You can go to this link here, and it's an Excel spreadsheet that you can download to your computer. And it has input cells that you can enter your numbers for your size of your herd, cost of labor, et cetera, to come up at the end to see if robotic systems are a good option for you in terms of economics, because this is a big point that we need to look at. When you think about robotic systems, it's great technology, but of course there's a cost to technology. We're getting a lot of benefits from it. But before you go ahead and go into invest into this, you need to kind of think very carefully about the costs. How can I pay for this? Do I have some equity? Do I have, will I have the cash flow to run this? Because otherwise, unfortunately, you will not be successful, and you'll be very frustrated. And I don't want you to be in that place where you invested this and you couldn't stay with it. So pay attention to that. That's important. We do get lots of individual cow and herd information. Every system has different ways of presenting it, but there's lots of information. It's exciting, like I said. And companies are really developing systems to help us to use all these data that's generated every day for every cow to help us make decisions. So when you get up in the morning and you go to the barn, what should I do today? Which cow needs to be bred? Which cow needs to be treated? She has mastitis or she has ketosis. I mean, there's another round of new technologies coming up that come with these systems that can help us make decisions on the farm and make our life easier. Not only activity and rumination, but there are systems that can measure a lot more things today in addition to this. I mean, there's a lot of information that can help us out. And as you are aware, there are 5 different companies that are manufacturing what we call the box systems for robots. And those are the most common units around the world. When I said there was probably 25,000 units, most of them are box systems. It means that a cow comes into a box, and then she gets milked inside that box. Lately is the most common in the world. They were the first. They have developed the technology for also automation in the box systems. And they happen to be also the type of system that we have in our project about 70% of our farms. Like I said, we started our project 2 years ago where pretty much all the robotic systems in the US in our project is Minnesota and Wisconsin. All of them were Lely or the Lavals. Today we'll have some other players in the market, but that was what we see. This is usually used as what we call a free flow system where cows can come into the robot anytime they want. They have free access to the feed bunk, the stalls, and the robots. Along with the automation for milking, of course, Lely has other products like the Juno feed pusher and some automatic scrapers that are robotic, feeding, robotic systems for feeding, etc. And you can see all that here in the show. The Laval is the second largest player in the box system market. The Lavals can be used either as, can be used as a free flow or a guided flow. We call a guided flow system. Guided flow means that a cow is pre-selected to either go to the robot or go to, let's say, the feed. So we preferred, based on our research in the US, to use what's called the milk first system. Milk first means, let's say a cow is lying down and she wants to go to the feed bunk, okay? She's like, oh, I'm hungry now, I'm gonna go eat my partial mixed ration that's in the feed bunk. She gets up and then she's gonna go through a one-way gate system, a smart gate system, that's gonna read her ID and decide if it's time for her to get milked or not. If it's time for her to get milked, she gets then moved to what we call a commitment pan or like a holding pan of sorts. And then she goes to the robot to get milked. And of course, as we all know, inside of that robot box, there is a concentrate feed. That's what it really attracts the cow to the robot. So she's gonna eat that concentrate feed, and then she's gonna go, after she milked, then she can have the access to the feed bunk. The De Laval system has a new development that's available now in our market, and it's called the Herd Navigator. And the Herd Navigator offers additional information for you about your cows. It sensors, captures the milk to evaluate the milk for different things, such as progesterone. Progesterone to help you know if that cow is pregnant or not, and lactate dehydrogenase to further detect mastitis, and also beta-hydroxybutyrate, which can tell us if the cow has ketosis. In addition to that, it also measures components in urea, so basically can help you fine-tune your management and your rations according to the information that we're getting from the cow every day. So new development is exciting. I only have one system in the US today, and I think a few in Canada, probably over 100 worldwide. The other companies, the box systems that came into the market today, and I forgot to mention both Lely and the Laval are single box systems. I mean, you have a robotic arm that milks one cow, okay, at a time. There are 2 other players in the market today. GEA Farm Technologies has a multi-box system, and that one arm can milk up to 5 boxes. So it moves in a rail, and it can milk more cows. Another unique thing about this system is that it milks basically the same cup. It preps the cow, it milks the cow, and post-dips the cow. So it only has to attach to the teats once. It's kind of interesting technology. It's a bit different than the other two where have different ways of prepping the cow. So all of these systems can all work, of course, but have different ways of getting the work done, so to speak. Another player in the market, AMS Galaxy. This one has one arm that milks 2 boxes. Maybe some of you attended a tour last night. There's a dairy close by here that has 4 boxes and 2 robotic arms. Unfortunately, I didn't make it here until about 10:30 last night, so I missed it. I'd like to see it in action. I haven't seen this one in action. I've seen the other 3 in action. This is not part of our research, like I said. And the fifth one is Bomatic, and Bomatic milks the cow from the back, like a parallel parlor does, so it's a little bit different. And as far as I'm aware, there are no systems in the US yet. Anybody from Bomatic Robotics here that can correct me if I'm wrong? No, as far as you know, yeah. They're not in the market here, but they're in Canada. So Canada has some of these. So all these systems can work, of course, and provide lots of that information that we need to have about the cows. One exciting development is the rotary parlors, or the larger parlor systems for larger dairies. That's a technology that's a little bit, there are very few units around the world. Most of them are in Europe. De Laval has some units in Australia, and then also in Europe, and GA Farm Technologies has units in Germany. And this is a product in development from Israel that will be actually not for rotaries, but for parallel and herringbone parlors. So I'm excited about this because it's another option that's going to come up in the future. And the Dairy Pro Q is the GIA, or the GA Farm Technology System. It's fully automated. I got these slides from Greg Larson, who is the robotic specialist for GIA. And it's interesting because you can have anywhere from 32 to 80 stalls, so very large operations. You can milk 150 to 400 cows per hour with just one person. So one operator that's kind of make sure things are working. So that is attachment, the pre-dip, then other cleaning. Milk is collected and analyzed, and then there's a post-dip at the end. And again, with that one cup, it's kind of interesting system. So each one of the units here has its robotic system built into it, so to speak, to collect the milk. And this is a picture close-up of it. And exciting development is, many of you maybe heard the news, I think it was back in August, broke dairy in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin will be the largest installation in the world for a robotic rotary. 900 cows expanding to 2,000. So I'm excited to see how that's going to work, and keep in touch with this to see how it goes. De Laval was the first rotary parlor in the world, and they have a little bit different system where you have a basically 5 robots. The first one preps and attaches, the first 2. One preps the left, one preps the right. And then you have robots number 3 and 4. One attaches the rear, one attaches the front. And then you have, of course, after the cow is milked, after the milk is collected, sampled for yield, conductivity, etc., the cups are removed per quarter. That's an advantage of robotic systems in general, be it a box system or a parlor, is that quarters are milked individually. So if you have a cow, like in a parlor system, a lot of times the units stay on the cow longer than need to be because one quarter is still milking. Versus the robotic systems, a quarter is done, automatically that unit detaches. So it's probably better for the cow in that respect. So then the cups are detached, tates are sprayed by another robot, and then the cow leaves the platform. And they can do up to maybe 1,400 milkings per day on this system. And this is a picture of one in Germany. And you see here the robotic arms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's how this one works, a little bit different. So exciting new developments. Okay, so much for the background and seeing what's out in the market. And I encourage all of you, and there were a lot of you, the hands went up, about robotic systems. All these, at least 4 of those companies I mentioned, are here. And this is a great opportunity for you to go, talk to all of them, collect the information, and again, think very hard before you go in this direction and decide what's best for your operation. It takes a lot of planning. We're in the process in our university trying to get some funding too to do the same thing, to hopefully build a robotic dairy. But it takes a lot of planning and also working with your lenders to find out how you're going to be financing this technology. So what is important things to consider when using robotic milking systems? So I'm going to go hopefully to give you some take-home messages. These are the things I need to look at, I need to think about, instead of just showing a lot of numbers and a bunch of charts and a bunch of results of this, and that. I want to apply those results to what's important on my dairy. And also using, like I told you, an example from that one producer that is one of our collaborators. So again, I'm using this as an opportunity to share the experience of a producer, because I know you like to hear from them, and then putting together with the experience that we had working with 52 farms, what we learned from the producers that we're working with, what we're learning from our data, okay? So this is kind of distilling it down to some of the things that we think at this point, as our data collection has gone through about 2 years of data collection, what we think is important. We might learn more yet. We might find out as we do even more analysis that maybe there are other factors. So I'm going to start with, like I said, some comments that Chad made to us in terms of goals for their farm in some of the metrics of the robot. So he likes to have more than 2.8 milkings per day, per cow per day. Based on our data and some other research, I think if we are at 2.4, even 2.2 milkings per day, you might still be fine. So 2.8 is trying to really be excellent, and not everybody, I'll show you the numbers in a minute, how many milkings per day our farms in general had, but that's a goal of his. We want to have not too many failed milkings. That means that cow got in and couldn't get milked, the machine couldn't attach, so on and so forth. You want to limit those because that's box time. We want to really be efficient. In the United States of America, we have very tight margins for profitability compared to places like Europe or Canada with a quota system. We do have very tight profit margins. So we want to maximize or optimize the use of our robot. This is a piece of equipment that has to be used properly and optimally. So you want to minimize any time that cows are in the box and not doing what they're supposed to be doing in that box, which is to get milked. He wants to have more than 1.5 hours of free time on the robot per day, just so you can have room in case things happen, I guess. He wants to fetch cows, 5 or 10 cows per day or less. Everybody understand what the fetch cows mean? What does it mean, fetching cows? It means that not every cow voluntarily comes to the robot. There are some cows that for some reason, maybe once in a while they don't come, and some cows are very chronic like that. They never come. So you're gonna have a list every day that robot computer gives you. Okay, this number of cows, 4 or 5 of them, didn't show up and they're supposed to be there. So we go and get them from the barn to the robot area, and then they'll go into the robot. We call those fetch cows. So most producers like to minimize the number of fetch cows, but in our research, it didn't seem to us that that was a major problem. I mean, no producer came to us and saying, oh my God, I have too many of them. It's horrible. Doesn't matter if it was a free flow system or a guided flow system. We didn't have that comment that there was a bad thing to have, that they had too many fetch cows. Yes, it's part of the job, so to speak. You still got to work with cows. News, guys, secret. When you put robots, you still got to work. You still got to work with your cows. I'm sorry, but that has to be done. But anyway, more on that later. So anyway, that was his goals. And he wants to have more than 5,000 pounds of milk per robot. That's a very high goal. We would say that based on our work, if you have more than 4,000 pounds per robot, you're probably doing okay. Of course, it all depends on milk prices and all that, but it's being efficient enough. If you're doing more than 4,500 pounds or 4,500 pounds, you're doing very good or doing good. More than 5,000 is excellent. Excellent. You're really making that robot work hard, and you're getting very good performance for it. What are we getting for our numbers? This is the average of milkings per day. So as we see, we're talking about having more than 2.4, let's say. So on the average, producers in our data set are getting above that average. We have most of them over, quite a few of them over 2.4 that I mentioned that was probably fine. We have some room for improvement, though, with a certain number of them. A small percentage of our producers probably not using the robot to its capacity or not as well. Maybe there could be some overcrowding going on here, too many cows in the barn, or it could be that cows are not being enticed to come to the robot box, something is not quite right here. So that is too low. So you want to be above 2, for sure. So you're losing production per animal here, and therefore your production per robot probably also reduced somewhat. Now when we talk about production per animal, keep in mind that when we talk about robotic milking systems, it's more important to think about the amount of milk per robot per day than per cow, okay? Just remember that, and I'll keep saying this many times. We talk about the efficiency of that robot. So our average was only about 70 pounds per cow per day, with some dairies much higher than that. But again, what we want to look at is the pounds of milk per robot. And our average was 4,325. So I said earlier that more than 4,000 was okay, right? Remember, that was the number I was using, 4,000. So our average is actually above that number. Again, we have some operations that are not achieving that 4,000 target, and some even, like here, a couple of them below 3,000. These raise concerns in terms of their profitability, in terms of being able to pay for that robot, to have the cash flow that they need to stay in business. So how can we help them? How can we improve them? And we're going to talk about other things that we can do to potentially improve that. But that is our data set. That's what we learn is happening with this 50 so plus producers. So what else is important? So it's important to optimize the number of milkings, the pounds per robot, etc. But what's important? What is one thing that makes cows come to that robot? I guess I'm giving a hint right here with the picture. What are they doing? They are eating. Feeding cows is very, very important. How you feed cows in this robotic system can make or break your business. As a sake of example, I'm going to use another producer example. In our precision dairy farming conference last summer, we invited a producer from Pennsylvania who had put a robotic system, and he was producing 62 pounds per day per cow and not getting enough pounds per robot, obviously, with that system. And he was really kind of struggling. So he changed nutritionists and hired a nutritionist who has experience working with robotic milking systems. And guess what? His production went up to 82 pounds per cow per day. So at 80 pounds per cow per day, now you're getting that number of over 4,000 pounds per robot. And now you can pay your bills, and now life is good. So that change, the only thing he said he changed in his operation was feeding cows differently. That's why I'm saying this is a very, very important aspect of robotic milking systems. Not the same as feeding cows in a freestall, where you basically balance the TMR with all the ingredients you need to meet the nutrient requirements of that cow, and then she hopefully is going to be eating what she needs. There's not a lot of sorting, and she's going to get what she needs. We need to balance that ration, of course, like we do in a regular dairy, to meet the nutritional needs of the cow, to optimize milk and milk components. It has to be economical. We have to look at feed prices. Thank goodness they're a little better now. But they'll never know what's going to happen in the future. Feed prices can be quite high sometimes. You need to be economical. And you have to have a labor-efficient way and a cost-effective way of delivering that. That's applicable to all dairies. But on robotic dairies, we have an additional thing to work with. And that is, we need to entice those cows to visit that milking station, that box, regularly and frequently. We talked about milkings per day, remember? The cow needs to go to that box to be milked. We talked about having high production, hopefully good enough production per cow, and that can only happen if that ration is balanced properly. So what do we have to do? We have to have what we call a partial mixed ration, a PMR. So when I say that, remember, it's a partial mixed ration. So some of the ingredients are in that ration. The forage is all in that partial mixed ration, or corn silage, or alfalfa haylage. Goes without saying, do your best to get the best quality forage you can, and then you're going to have a certain percentage of the energy in there, some of the protein in there, but you don't want to put everything in there, because the additional concentrate has to be fed in that milking station, and it has to be fed to the production level of the cow to make her peak high in early lactation, and you're going to feed less of it in late lactation to help her dry off. The beauty of a robotic system is that you can actually fine-tune that ration even a little bit better than you can on a freestyle system, because now you can feed a little bit more or a bit less of that pellet in the robot, and now you can hopefully do more of a precision feeding of that cow. So that's kind of the beauty of it. So we need to know how to do this appropriately in order to bring the cow to the robot and in order to get them to produce milk. And if you have guided flow system, it's important to use your gates in appropriate manner. This is how much concentrate our producers are feeding their robot. This is from the robotic computer. That's the average for the free flow systems, the Lely systems at 11.2 pounds per cow per day. That's how much concentrate they get in the robot, up to maybe 25 pounds maximum for the early lactation high producing cow. Guided flow systems, this is based on what the producers told us. I have some technical difficulties getting the number from the actual computer, but 7.9 is our average. For max, only one producer fed more than 12, so this is just the one producer that was at 18. And we only had one producer here that fed a maximum of 12. Most were feeding 20, 25. So we're trying to feed more, again, optimizing the use of that pellet. And this is just shows the distribution of how much they're feeding on average. So this is across all stages of lactation. So there's a producer here that's feeding an average of 15 pounds, so it's quite high average. This is average. And we also talked with nutritionists in our study. So nutritionists, I don't want to share a lot of their information because they get mad at me that I'm telling all their secrets. No, just kidding. But there was something that you need to keep in mind. You're going to balance that partial mixed ration for less than the production you want in the tank, right? Because you don't want to feed all the feed the cow needs in that mixed ration, because what that does, she's not going to come to the box. We need to make sure she comes to that box. What brings her to that box is the concentrate, is the candy that's there. If it was me, it would be dark chocolate, because I don't like as much sugar. But there's something that's exciting to her that makes her come into that robot to eat something else and be there. And while she's distracted eating that, eating the pellet, a machine goes under her and milks her. So that's important. So basically, we want to balance for less than the production that we want. And these are the numbers that we got summarized from what the nutritionist told us. Usually for the free flow, you're going to balance for even a little less because it's a free flow, so the cow has to really come on her own to the milking box. And the guided flow systems, they tend to balance for a little bit closer to the production level because you're feeding less pellets in the robot. So just you need to kind of be able to understand, if you are a nutritionist working with robotic systems, that a free flow works different than a guided flow. So it's an additional challenge for nutritionists to work with this. So it's not an easy task, but there are lots of good nutritionists out there today as we get more robots in the US that know how to do this. So just find someone that can work with you. Again, I want to share some data from Chad Kiefer here. He's very good about putting numbers together, and I told him, can I use this slide too, where we looked at comparison of their costs of a robot and the costs for the conventional system that they had, which again is a freestyle with a double 10 parallel parlor. Okay, 6 employees full-time, 3 employees full-time. As you notice here, there's a difference. As a high-producing cow, more in early lactation, it's going to cost more than later in lactation. But overall, interesting enough, the numbers are very similar. So feeding cows in a robotic milking system is not necessarily going to cost you more than feeding cows in a freestyle system. Costs are similar. And then he summarizes by saying that it's cheaper to feed the later lactation cows in robotic system and more expensive to feed the early lactation animals. Also, he points out that there are some benefits. We do not need to overcondition cows because we're feeding them what they need. So basically what you do, you can regulate the amount of pellets that each cow gets per day. So he actually had an example for me of a cow that was producing 92 pounds of milk in January 15, let's say, and then he cuts the pellets down to 2.5 pounds per day incrementally. And then in about 3 weeks or 2 weeks, I can't remember exactly, she's down to 58 pounds. So basically you're feeding less to that animal, you're drying her off, and that's a good thing the robots can do for you also. And you can reward the high-producing cows with the nutrients that they need. So you can feed more energy. Most of these robotic systems have the option of feeding 2 feeds, 2 types of concentrate at once. So you can feed it like a regular pellet that can be fed to all cows. And then you could have a high energy fat or high energy pellet for your early lactation cows. And that will help them peak higher and hopefully then be more productive throughout the entire lactation. Because you know, each pound that we have of peak productivity for a cow, we get 200 pounds of milk for the lactation. So if you can have them peak higher, you're gonna get more milk from that animal. So that's interesting, and it's a good thing that we can do. And of course, cows can be in positive energy balance faster because again, we're feeding to their needs in early lactation, and they will be more productive and not have as many problems. If you know how to work with the system and pay attention to things, you're gonna reduce problems with, for example, ketosis and things like that. So that's a good thing. What are some other things to keep in mind? So remember, is the efficiency of the robot in terms of production per robot per day, very important. Number of milkings per day is important. And feeding the cows properly. We learned this from our data. We learned this by talking with producers. Those are very key things for you to know before you go into robotic systems. What are some other things that we need to pay attention to? We need to be able to be interested or being willing to train the cows. To quote the producers, not just one, many of them told us that they have 3 days of hell when the cows first start in a robotic system. Literally hell. 24 hours a day, I have to be here trying to bring these cows into the robot. They don't know. They're not as smart. We cannot speak English to them. It makes it really hard. Then you have 3 weeks of maybe purgatory. It's a little better, but you're still working really, really hard, you know? After 3 months, things get a lot better. So that's what we heard from many producers. So training those animals the very first time is harder. Once they learn and they know what that box is about and what happened in that box, and it's not a dangerous place, and I'm going in there and getting some nice concentrate and some nice feed, I'm gonna go more easily. And that life is better. But then you also need to train your new heifers. And I've noticed as I look at the data, and I look at the peak production of cows and peak production of heifers, it appears to me that heifers have a little harder time peaking in these systems than they do maybe in a regular freestyle system. So there's more training. We need to learn a little bit more how to train new animals so they understand what that box is about. And I know at least one producer has installed like an electronic feeder kind of box in their close-up pen of heifers to kind of train them so they're more used to it. Another thing that is happening, heifers are more submissive, and a cow might be using the box more, so they might not be milked as many times per day sometimes. So those things are things we need to work on yet for heifers. We need to be more comfortable in terms of mastitis. Is the system really detecting mastitis for us? Technology keeps getting better, so probably so. But pay attention to the mastitis and how I treat it, what I treat it. The system allows you to divert the milk. So once it shows the cow has mastitis, that milk can be used for calves or can be discarded. So that technology is good and it keeps getting better. Like I told you, there's new sensors being developed. So this is something just for you to pay attention to. There will be alarms. The computer sends you a text or calls you when there are problems. And in our research, was interesting to know that it's not as often that happens in the middle of the night. We heard numbers of 1 to 2 times. I don't know, maybe your producers are really doing a good job. You're not agreeing with that. You get more often than 2? More than 2, okay. Per day. No, per month, I meant, yeah. So, but there are some of those calls in the middle of the night and calls during the day, of course. But in the middle of the night, hopefully not too often, but you need to be prepared for it because this is a piece of equipment. The sooner you solve a problem, the better. If you let things build up, it really builds up quick. If you're not going to get your cows milked on time, all of a sudden you're going to have really a big problem. So it's like a train wreck, so we need to be on top of it. So be aware of it. Fetching cows, like I said earlier, you need to be willing to do that. You need to be willing to be on the barn and to look at your list every day and see who needs to be milked, who needs to be brought to the robot. And that's part of the job. And again, producers that like working with cows don't mind doing this. Cows in robotic barns tend to become very calm, actually. They're not all spooked up, and they actually move very calmly around people. We're no longer going to the barn 2 or 3 times a day to bring them to a parlor. They seem to be calm around people, but you need to do that, fetch the animals. Need to be comfortable how the robot's prepping the cows, because we saw some situations where, for example, there was a hose that was kinked, and there was no disinfectant coming into the brushes. So what happened is that somatic cell counts just escalated to like 700,000, just very quickly, because that brush was dirty and there was a lot of bacteria on it. So basically, you need to pay attention to make sure the cows are being prepped properly. And also post-dipping. Is that done right? Because again, you're not there. You're not milking the cows yourself. You're not seeing what's going on. So we need to make sure that robot's doing a good job of pre-dipping and post-dipping and prepping. Pay attention to it. And singeing udders. That's a job that needs to be done, especially in robots. We had some situations that were funny where the robot, the laser or the camera that's trying to find the teats finds this big chunk of hair and goes back and forth and puts it on the hair and like trying to get milk of hair. It's not going to happen, guys. Sorry, it's not going to happen. So singeing the udders is very important part of the job. Find a way to do it and get it done, even more than you do in a tie stall or freestall system, because the robot doesn't get around it like people do. Maintenance and repair costs. I hear more about that, especially recent as robots are getting a little bit older. Okay, as things get older, there are parts that go bad. If you buy a BMW, they sell you with a maintenance plan for 4 years, because it's a car that's a high-end car that has a lot of mechanical problems sometimes. And then they bring to the dealer, and it's free because you paid for the maintenance, right? But you know, at the end of 4 years, if something breaks down, you're going to have to be ready to pay the price of fixing it. A laser costs $14,000. So do you have a savings account, if you will, to make sure that you cover the cost of replacement? Because you cannot just go down to the local hardware store. This is a specialized piece of equipment. We cannot just go to the hardware store and get things. A few things maybe you can, but most of the stuff you can't. It's specialized. It's high-end technology. It's not something that you can do yourself a lot of times. So be prepared. I'm not saying don't have a robot, but just know there'll be a cost. So like anything that is machinery, it needs to be maintained, and you need to do that. So don't forget this. This has to be in your budget. The budget includes not only the loan that you got to pay for the robot, what the money you got to pay every month, but also the repair down the road that you need to spend on, okay? So just to go into this thinking there'll be no cost, okay? I'm not saying don't go for robots, but just be prepared, because it's a great technology, and it is working really hard. This one claw is milking 180, the equivalent of 180 animals, or like, say, 60 animals, but 3 times a day, let's say. That would be equivalent to have maybe like 600 cows being milked by a double 5 parlor, let's say. We don't do that. We have more units usually for that. It's just hard to do, and it's being used a lot. And it has a robot arm. It has a lot of mechanical moving parts. So you need to repair it, and you need to do that. And if you get good at fixing stuff, that's better for you. So if you're a handy guy, many of our producers were, the little things that can be fixed, you do fix it. And you fix them right away, and you're going to have less problems. So that's something for you to keep in mind, so you can do that. So basically, having robotic systems is a little bit of a mindset change, in the sense that now we're going to focus on milk per robot per day or per hour, so how efficient that machine is working. We want to maximize the milk per minute of box time. So the milking speed of the cow now becomes important. So if you have very slow milkers, they're holding a robot back, so to speak. So you might want to think about cow prices are still good, guys. So that cow is worth a lot of money. If she's being really, really slow, and you have all this data, by the way, every single cow, every single day, every single milking. You can go and look how fast they milk. How fast is that milking flowing from her? And if you have a cow that's chronically very slow milker, maybe she fits better somewhere else. Maybe you can sell to the neighbor that has a parlor. That's okay. Well, he's going to hate you, but it's okay. But anyway, some things to look at. You want to have good machine setting and maintenance, like we talked about it. And hopefully the cows are well trained, and they're cooperating, and they stay in place a little bit, not dancing around so much. The machine can attach easily. And you have, again, singe their udders, make things easier for the robot to attach. And you're going to optimize your percent free time. You have to have some of it, but don't want to have too much. 2 hours maybe, I think I hear from producers, 2 to 3. Optimize refusals, so we don't have a lot of, again, less than 5, like Chad was saying. That's very low in our data set. I would say a lot of farmers are less than 1 sometimes for most days. I would say average is probably not quite 5, it's less than that. So people are doing good on that. The biggest factors, again, is the percent idle time and the milk flow rate per minute. And we need to balance the milk per cow per visit, cow per day, milkings per day, and the number of cows per robot. Routinely, you tend to say that we want to have 60 cows. Some of our farms do have more than that. Is that good or not? I've seen a diversity of response. Sometimes I have farms with maybe 70 cows, and then you're going to really reduce the number of milkings per cow, so the productivity per cow went down, and the actual pounds per robot, instead of going up, went down. So again, change your mindset, trying to get as many pounds as you can in that bulk tank, and that robot is important. And then I want to share with you again, as I promised, sharing some information from a producer to you, and see if he agrees with some of the things we're saying. Important to milk the right cows at the right time, stay lactation, remove inefficient cows. We talk about cows that milk too slow or spend too much time in the box, low speed. Cows that we have to fetch all the time, they never learn, maybe you want to get rid of them. Milking per hours, how many you have per hour, 24/7. You would like to have more than 160 milkings per robot per day. That comes back to that calculation of how many milkings per day he wanted to have. Reduce failures, less than 5. Reduce treatment time. Again, doing things like cleanless, singeing others, etc., to make it easier for the robot to keep your cows healthy. Optimize the milking time by doing performance checks, by doing mechanical checks, by really being on top of it. And these are some of the numbers from our data set on how fast cows are milking. They are milking on average 6.2 pounds per minute. It's pretty good, I guess, but there's farms getting to 10 pounds per minute, 10.5 pounds per minute. So in 3 minutes, the cow is making 30 pounds. It's pretty fast. It's nice. So we want to have more of those cows, less of the slow ones. So the question that many of you in the room here want to have robots, looks like, or thinking about it. So do you want to have robots? Let's ask ourselves some questions. Do you or your employees like working with cows? Or you have the attitude that I'm going to put the robot in my barn and then I can go do my crops and disappear. I don't have to look at them anymore. Well, think again. If you do not want to work with cows, pay attention to them, feed them, treat them, fetch them, it's not going to work. You have to like cows. You're still going to spend time with them. You just have a flexibility of labor. You're just doing something different. Instead of spending your time putting machines on and cows, now there's a robot that does that for you. But there are other things that cows need, and you need to enjoy that. So if you don't enjoy that, don't go there. Do you have the best ration feeding management? Do you have consultants in your area or people that you know that have experience working with robotic systems that can provide you with that consulting role that will help you to provide the best feeding to your animals? Because we talked about earlier, feeding is very important. It has to be done right. Remember the example I gave you from a producer, 20 pounds per cow per day, just by changing the ration. Very important. And the pellets that you're using. Do you have them? How is your barn? Is your barn comfortable? Is it properly designed? Cow comfort is important in any system, and especially on these systems. You want to minimize the number of lame cows. Guess what? A lame cow doesn't feel like walking very much. She's not going to come to the robot. How we use a foot bath. That's still a little difficult to figure out because it's hard to do. And the exit of the robot, we cannot do that. It just messes up with the traffic. So some people are actually doing a portable foot bath that they can put at the end of the barn somewhere where they can guide cows to that area, maybe a few times per week to walk through the foot bath. We saw a little more lameness on these systems because if you have heel warts, how you treat them. It's a little more challenging. So think of all these things before you design the barn. Are you handy with equipment? That will help you. Because if you're handy, you can fix things and reduce your repair costs quite a bit. But do you have a service provider nearby? We actually, here in the Midwest, are very lucky to have a lot of these companies represented and available with experts to help us to fix problems, to be there if you need a major part being replaced, to do the maintenance checks, etc. So that's important. And do you like technology? No, there's a lot of information that comes out of these robots. And those are important for you if you know how to use them. It really benefit you. And like I said, a lot of the companies are coming up with even more automation on this respect that can give you like action lists of things you need to do. Are you ready to pay for the cost of repairs and maintenance and your loan? Because there'll be a cost to those things. So you need to make sure that you have the cash flow for things. And do you have strong management skills? It only works if you have good management. Another quote from a producer of ours, Doug Kastenschmidt from Wisconsin. Management makes milk. Robots only harvest it. So just because you put a robotic system doesn't mean that you don't manage. And it's hard work. I could not be a dairy farmer. I admire you guys. And I thank you because I eat dairy products every day. And if it's not for you, I couldn't have it. And I know it's hard work. But if you don't put the effort and manage really hard on this system, it's not going to be successful. So it takes management. And it's very well said. This is a producer the day we visited. He was averaging almost 100 pounds per cow per day. So it works when you put the management. That's important. Keep it in mind. So it can work. Definitely can work. There's all, like I said, visit with the vendors here. There's all different systems available to us. It's an exciting world of technology. It's really cool, and it's going to be even better. I think every week there's new things in the market on precision dairy farming, so do that. Most current users are satisfied with it. They continue with it. They've been able to expand without hiring extra labor or reduce their labor. You need to use a whole system approach for success. Basically, you can look at all different aspects, the feeding, the cow comfort, etc. You want to make that cash flow work. Keep in mind also the cost of things. And it does require excellent management. Before I go, I also want to invite all of you here from the US. I forgot to put a slide on it. Shame on me. Next year, June 24th and 25th, 2015, we're going to have our US Precision Dairy Farming Conference in Rochester, Minnesota. So I invite all of you interested in precision technologies to come to Rochester, Minnesota, June 24th and 25th, 2015, at the Civic Center. We're going to have our second conference and expo on precision dairy farming, and robotic systems most definitely will be part of it. So I want to see you there, hopefully, those of you from US and Canada especially. I want to acknowledge the dairy producers that work with us on this project. Like I said, it has been a long road. We visit the dairy, we collect data from their computers, so appreciate it. And also Leila and Delaval for helping us to make sure we can collect the data, and being also providing us some expertise or information. David Camel, Kelly Furlick, she's my junior scientist, worked really hard to get some of the data recently, and some of the students that help us. And particularly, thank you for your time and attention, for being here today during this beautiful show. And I want to have maybe a few minutes for questions and comments. Some of you here that also have robots might have comments for me. I always learn a lot from you guys, so thank you for your attention. Appreciate it. We don't have time. I think I talked too much, huh?
I'll talk too fast. On behalf of GEA Farm Technologies, I'd like to thank Dr. Andrus for sharing your valuable insight on robotic milking. Before you leave, for those of you who haven't left yet, we have some coupons for free ice cream at the GEA Farm Technologies ice cream stand, which is at the other side of the building. So grab a coupon before you leave for that. And coincidentally, our booth is nearby, right by the stand. And you'll have the opportunity to see a working MI1 robotic system at the GEA Farm Technologies booth, which is booth 2001. And please fill out your feedback card. Take a second to fill that out and drop that off at the back of the room. But the important thing, again, coupons for free ice cream at the back of the room. Thanks again for coming.